This is how women manipulate men without them even realizing it. This is not about hate. This is not about blaming women. This is about the hidden tactics of control that leave men confused, emotionally drained, and always trying to fix things without knowing why. 1. Guilt tripping is a psychological manipulation tactic where someone makes another person feel responsible for their emotions or actions. It often involves subtle or direct statements that create a sense of obligation, shame, or remorse in the target. The goal is to influence behavior by making the other person feel guilty, even when they haven't done anything wrong. This manipulation can weaken confidence, making the person more compliant to the manipulator's demands. Over time, repeated guilt tripping can lead to emotional exhaustion, self-doubt, and an unhealthy dynamic where the manipulated person prioritizes avoiding conflict over their own needs and well-being. 2. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation where someone distorts reality to make another person question their memory, perception, or sanity. It often involves denial, contradiction, or trivializing the victim's concerns to create confusion and self-doubt. The manipulator may dismiss valid feelings, claim events never happened, or twist past conversations to maintain control. Over time, the victim becomes dependent on the manipulator's version of reality, doubting their own judgment. This tactic erodes confidence, making the victim more submissive and easier to control. Gaslighting is particularly harmful as it can lead to anxiety, depression, and a loss of self-trust. 3. Playing the victim is a manipulation tactic where someone consistently portrays themselves as innocent, helpless, or mistreated to gain sympathy and avoid accountability. Instead of admitting fault or taking responsibility for their actions, they shift blame onto others, making them feel guilty or obligated to fix the situation. This strategy can be used to justify toxic behavior, excuse poor decisions, or manipulate emotions for personal gain. Over time, it creates an imbalanced dynamic where the victimized person assumes responsibility for the manipulator's emotions, often leading to self-doubt, emotional exhaustion, and an inability to recognize when they are being unfairly controlled. 4. Withholding affection is a psychological manipulation tactic where someone deliberately withdraws love, attention, or emotional support to control another person's behavior. This silent punishment creates anxiety, making the victim desperate to regain affection and more willing to comply with the manipulator's demands. It can involve ignoring messages, refusing physical touch, or acting emotionally distant without explanation. Over time, this tactic conditions the victim to seek approval, reinforcing an unhealthy power dynamic. Withholding affection fosters insecurity, lowers self-esteem, and creates emotional dependency, as the manipulated person begins to believe they must constantly please the other to receive love. 5. The silent treatment is a form of emotional manipulation where someone deliberately ignores or refuses to communicate with another person to assert control. This tactic creates uncertainty, anxiety, and self-doubt in the victim, making them more likely to apologize or comply to restore harmony. Unlike healthy conflict resolution, the silent treatment is used to punish rather than address issues. It forces the victim into a position of emotional distress, making them feel invisible or unworthy. Over time, this behavior can lead to feelings of rejection, insecurity, and a fear of upsetting the manipulator, reinforcing a toxic power imbalance. 6. Creating jealousy is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately makes another person feel insecure about their relationship to gain control or validation. This can involve subtle actions like mentioning other potential romantic interests, flirting in front of their partner, or comparing them to others. The goal is to provoke feelings of competition, self-doubt, and anxiety, making the victim feel the need to work harder for the manipulator's approval. Over time, this tactic weakens self-esteem, fosters emotional dependence, and creates an unstable dynamic where the manipulated person feels constantly on edge, afraid of losing the manipulator's attention or affection. 7. Moving the goalposts is a manipulation tactic where someone constantly changes expectations or demands, making it impossible for the other person to succeed or feel adequate. No matter how much effort is put in, the manipulator always finds something wrong or raises the standard, keeping the victim in a cycle of trying to prove themselves. This tactic fosters insecurity, frustration, and self-doubt, as the manipulated person feels they can never truly meet expectations. Over time, it creates emotional exhaustion and dependency, making the victim more eager to seek validation and approval from the manipulator, reinforcing their control. 8. Love bombing and pulling away is a manipulation tactic where someone overwhelms another person with excessive affection, compliments, and attention to create emotional dependency, only to suddenly withdraw. The initial phase feels intense and euphoric, making the victim believe they have found an ideal partner. However, once attachment is formed, the manipulator distances themselves, creating confusion and insecurity. This cycle keeps the victim craving the lost affection, making them more willing to tolerate mistreatment or chase the manipulator's approval. Over time, this leads to emotional instability, self-doubt, and a deepened attachment to the manipulator, reinforcing their control. 9. Testing your boundaries is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately pushes limits to see how much control they can exert over another person. This often starts with small requests, disrespectful comments, or minor rule breaking to gauge the victim's reaction. If no resistance is met, the manipulator escalates their behavior, gradually increasing their influence. The goal is to weaken the victim's ability to say no, making them more compliant over time. This tactic fosters a dynamic where the manipulated person feels guilty or afraid to enforce their boundaries, ultimately leading to a loss of self-respect and emotional independence. 10. The damsel in distress act is a manipulation tactic where someone exaggerates their helplessness or vulnerability to gain sympathy, assistance, or special treatment. By portraying themselves as incapable of handling challenges, they create an emotional obligation for others to step in and rescue them. This tactic exploits protective instincts, making the manipulated person feel responsible for solving problems that are not their own. Over time, this dynamic fosters dependency, drains emotional energy, and shifts the balance of power as the rescuer becomes conditioned to prioritize the manipulator's needs over their own, often at the cost of their well-being. 11. Making you feel insecure is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately chips away at another person's confidence to gain control. This can involve subtle criticism, backhanded compliments, or comparisons that create self-doubt. By making the victim question their worth, intelligence, or attractiveness, the manipulator weakens their self-esteem, making them more dependent on external validation. Over time, this tactic erodes confidence, leaving the manipulated person seeking reassurance from the very person undermining them. This creates an unhealthy power dynamic where the manipulator maintains control by positioning themselves as the ultimate judge of the victim's value and desirability. 12. Comparing you to other men is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately brings up other men to create self-doubt and competition. This can be done subtly or overtly, with comments about an ex, a celebrity, or even a friend to make the victim feel inadequate. The goal is to trigger insecurity, making the victim feel the need to prove themselves or work harder for the manipulator's approval. Over time, this tactic can erode confidence, create anxiety, and foster an unhealthy need for validation. It shifts the power dynamic, ensuring the manipulated person is always striving to meet shifting, unrealistic expectations. 13. Using sex as a weapon is a manipulation tactic where someone controls intimacy to gain leverage in a relationship. This can involve withholding affection as punishment, using sex as a reward for compliance, or creating emotional dependency through physical intimacy. The goal is to make the victim associate love and approval with meeting the manipulator's demands. Over time, this tactic fosters insecurity, frustration, and an imbalanced dynamic where the manipulated person feels pressured to constantly please their partner to maintain affection. Healthy relationships are built on mutual connection, not using intimacy as a tool for control or emotional coercion. 14. Making you dependent on her is a manipulation tactic where someone gradually isolates their partner from sources of support, such as friends, family, or personal interests, to create emotional reliance. This can involve discouraging social interactions, undermining confidence in others, or subtly making the victim feel guilty for spending time away. Over time, the manipulated person begins to believe they need the manipulator for emotional stability, decision-making, and validation. This tactic fosters a sense of entrapment, making it harder to leave even when the relationship becomes toxic. True love supports independence, not dependence built on control and isolation. 15. Reverse psychology is a manipulation tactic where someone deliberately says the opposite of what they want, knowing it will provoke the desired reaction. Instead of directly asking for something, they frame it in a way that makes the other person feel compelled to prove them wrong. This tactic preys on pride, competitiveness, or the need for approval, making the victim act in ways they wouldn't normally choose. Over time, repeated use of reverse psychology can create a pattern where the manipulated person constantly seeks to meet unspoken expectations, reinforcing the manipulator's control while making them believe they are acting independently. 16. Fake ultimatums is a manipulation tactic where someone threatens to leave, break up, or take drastic action to pressure their partner into compliance. These ultimatums are rarely genuine. Instead, they are used to create fear, urgency, and emotional instability. The goal is to make the victim feel like they must change, apologize, or give in to avoid losing the relationship. Over time, this tactic weakens confidence, fosters anxiety, and reinforces a power imbalance where the manipulator dictates terms. Healthy relationships involve open communication and compromise, not threats designed to manipulate emotions and force submission. 17. Future faking is a manipulation tactic where someone makes grand promises about the future to create false hope and emotional investment. They talk about marriage, vacations, or shared dreams to make their partner feel secure and committed. However, these promises rarely materialize, as the manipulator's goal is to keep the victim emotionally hooked without actually following through. Over time, this tactic can lead to confusion, disappointment, and self-doubt as the manipulated person continues to wait for a future that never comes. Genuine relationships are built on actions, not empty words designed to string someone along for personal gain. 18. Hot and cold behavior is a manipulation tactic where someone alternates between affection and withdrawal to create emotional dependency. One moment they are loving, attentive, and engaged, making their partner feel valued. Then, without warning, they become distant, unresponsive, or cold, leaving the victim confused and anxious. This unpredictability keeps the victim constantly seeking approval and trying to earn back the manipulator's affection. Over time, this cycle fosters insecurity and emotional addiction, as the manipulated person craves the highs of affection while fearing the inevitable withdrawal. Healthy relationships provide consistency, not emotional roller coasters designed to control behavior. 19. Constantly threatening to leave is a manipulation tactic where someone frequently brings up ending the relationship not because they genuinely want to leave, but to create fear and control. These threats keep their partner in a state of anxiety, making them more likely to comply with demands or tolerate mistreatment to prevent abandonment. Over time, this tactic erodes self-esteem and emotional security as the manipulated person feels like they must constantly prove their worth to keep the relationship intact. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect and commitment, not emotional blackmail designed to create fear of loss. 20. Controlling you with money is a manipulation tactic where someone uses financial dependence to gain power in a relationship. This can involve restricting access to money, guilt-tripping over financial support, or making their partner feel incapable of independence. By controlling resources, the manipulator creates a power imbalance where the victim feels trapped and obligated to comply with their wishes. Over time, this fosters dependency, lowers self-confidence, and makes leaving the relationship difficult. Healthy relationships maintain financial respect and balance, ensuring that neither partner uses money as a tool for control, coercion, or emotional leverage. 21. Fake apologies is a manipulation tactic where someone pretends to take responsibility without genuinely meaning it. Instead of sincere remorse, their apology is often dismissive, vague, or shifts blame onto the victim. Phrases like, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or "Fine, I guess I was wrong," are used to end arguments without actually addressing the issue. Over time, fake apologies invalidate the victim's feelings, making them question their own concerns while allowing the manipulator to avoid accountability. A genuine apology comes with changed behavior, not empty words meant to silence or pacify the other person. 22. Victimizing herself. In every argument is a manipulation tactic where someone twists the situation to make themselves appear as the one being wronged, even when they are at fault. Instead of taking responsibility, they exaggerate their own suffering, cry, or shift blame onto their partner, making them feel guilty for even bringing up the issue. This tactic deflects accountability and forces the victim into a position of apologizing or comforting the manipulator. Over time, this creates a dynamic where the manipulated person avoids confrontation, fearing they will always be made to feel like the bad guy in any disagreement. 23. Creating drama for attention is a manipulation tactic where someone stirs up unnecessary conflict to gain emotional control and validation. They may overreact to minor issues, start arguments over trivial matters, or provoke jealousy just to keep their partner emotionally engaged. This keeps the victim constantly trying to fix things, walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting the manipulator. Over time, this leads to emotional exhaustion, anxiety, and a toxic cycle where the victim feels responsible for maintaining peace. Healthy relationships are built on stability and mutual understanding, not manufactured chaos designed to keep one person in control. 24. Using social media for manipulation is a tactic where someone leverages online behavior to control emotions and create insecurity. This can include posting suggestive photos, liking or commenting on other people's posts to provoke jealousy, or sharing cryptic messages meant to make their partner feel uncertain. They may also showcase an exaggerated version of their life to appear more desirable or to punish their partner by ignoring them online. Over time, this manipulation fosters anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional dependency as the victim becomes preoccupied with decoding their partner's social media actions instead of focusing on real-life communication and trust.